Echo.
Touch echo.
Well, hello and welcome to the Saltcast. My name is Ryan Johnson. I'm glad to be here. Excited to be here. We got Paul Johnson. We got Jason Parr. We got Danny Wright on with us today. Guys, how are you doing?
Fantastic.
Doing awesome.
Glad to be here.
Lovely.
Sweet. So, as you all know, talking to the audience, we want to talk to everybody because we think everybody has to deal with sales tax in some way or fashion. But today, we kind of want to focus more on CPAs and accountants, bookkeepers, that direction. We work a lot with them. And during our pre-chat for this podcast today, Paul Johnson, he brought up a great article that I think would lead into our discussion really well. So, Paul, I'll just turn it over to you, discuss what you found this morning.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, no, I came across an article published by the CPA Trendlines this morning that talked about the notorious Wayfair decision that was established over 3 years ago now. It's been 3 years since old Wayfair in South Dakota went to the Supreme Court. I thought this article was interesting because it talked specifically about how accountants, most accountants believe that about 98% of small businesses, which is virtually all, are failing to fully comply with all the interstate sales tax issues that they may be liable for. And yet about 71% of accountants are falling short of handling their sales tax clients' issues, or their clients' sales tax issues. So what that says to me is something that we've been talking about, and what even our founder, Peisner Johnson, talked a lot about was accountants are aware of sales tax. They know it's out there, but they don't truly know how to manage and how to consult and how to help clients with interstate sales tax issues. And that's one area that Peisner Johnson is really trying to do more of, is work closely with accountants to help with their clients and their sales tax issues. I recently attended and helped with the Avalara Crush event, and in this Crush event I spoke specifically to accountants and CPAs when it comes to sales tax, because that's really where we can help accountants and CPAs shine, is in the sales tax world, because that's all that we do. We don't do any of the income tax filing work. I mean, we can help with registrations, but we generally even try and stay away from doing those and leave those to the accountants and CPAs. But I really like this article, just bringing it full circle, just because it helps shine a light where we've been talking and where we've been discussing over the last few years, specifically about how accountants aren't aware. I mean, there's a lot to know from interstate sales and use tax that it's hard to stay up on. It's hard to stay to be in the weeds on outside of your home state, and that's where most CPAs, they shine, is in their home state, the one or two nearby states. But outside of that, they start to get a little uncomfortable, and that's where we can help shine and help your clients.
Hey, I just wanted to follow up on what Paul said. I have a tendency to echo and amplify what someone said, just to add emphasis to it. And something that's interesting in the world today, in the last 3 years, CPAs, accountants, and bookkeepers know this, so I'm preaching to the choir, so to speak. There's no doubt there's been a greater demand from their own client base to answer questions related to sales and use tax specifically. And what we find is we talk to a lot of people on a daily basis, including CPAs, accountants, and bookkeepers. And some of you may be familiar with what we call a What's Next call, which is a free consultation that walks through and provides a discussion. I call it a discovery call, where we learn a little bit about you, you learn a little bit about us, but we're specifically talking about sales and use tax issues that are facing sellers today. And a lot of times the thought is that this call or this consultation is specifically for sellers in the U.S. and Canada. And what we want to emphasize is that this call is specifically for CPAs, accountants, and bookkeepers as well. It gives you a chance to learn a little bit about us, but it gives us a chance to discuss what I call the three most important questions that every seller needs to be able to answer to be able to know what to do next, right? And so those three questions, real simply, does your client have nexus in one of the states in the U.S. or other jurisdictions? That could be physical nexus or economic nexus, but the question is, do they have nexus? So you need to be able to talk through that and answer that. Second most important question is what they sell taxable. And it might seem difficult to be able to answer that question, but it's easier than you might think. And you could have some greater confidence and peace of mind if you understood the tools and the resources available to be able to answer those questions. And then the third question is, how do they sell their products and services? This is key in determining whether your client has a sales tax responsibility, because they might be selling through a marketplace who has that responsibility. They might be selling through a marketplace and additional channels of their own, which means they have a complex situation where they have some responsibility for collection and remittance, and a marketplace has some responsibility for collection and remittance. But just to reiterate, three questions. Do I have nexus? Or for a CPA, accountant, or bookkeeper, does my client have nexus in a particular state? Number two, is what they sell taxable? And then number three, how do they sell those items? So in a What's Next call, we have a discussion about those questions. And that's just as important for a CPA, accountant, and bookkeeper as it is for a seller that's trying to figure out its own sales and use tax responsibility across the U.S. So I just want to reiterate that we know that this demand is being placed on you. We know that it's not always a comfortable demand because you're considered the trusted advisor to your client. And they, even though you may not specialize or even focus or even have a group that specifically focuses on state and local tax or SALT, they expect you to be able to answer those questions and be able to respond and help them. And in that article, if that's the case, if 71% of accountants aren't really equipped or prepared to answer those questions, or better yet, be able to help their clients recognize potential exposure, then we're kind of way behind the ball. And that's where Peisner Johnson can really help. This What's Next call is a free consultation that's open to CPAs, accountants, and bookkeepers, just to help you have an awareness of the issues, to give you better confidence and peace of mind in being able to answer your clients' questions. And then whether we work with you or work directly with your client, we can help facilitate getting sellers compliant, so that they don't face what I consider to be the biggest exposure in tax, because sales tax is what I call a margin killer. If you should be collecting tax and you don't, and the state comes back and demands that tax from you, then it will come out of your own pocket with penalty and interest. And that can be anywhere between 10 to 25% annually of your sales that are taxable, where you have that responsibility. If you're working on a 10% margin as a seller, then that's going to kill the margin that you had in your business. And if that goes on too long, then it could potentially kill the business altogether. And so it is important to be able to understand these principles, have a little bit of understanding to at least know how to direct your client to help them in these issues.
I was waiting here as Par was talking and ready to say something, but he stole it right out of my mind and talked about it. But I think I can still elaborate on that and kind of slip into, I feel like, marriage or relationship therapy mode. The point specifically about a CPA, right, being the expert, and they feel like they need to be the expert, right? They're a trusted advisor to their client. And we talk about oftentimes the paralyzation, right? The fear that is caused by someone that suddenly finds themselves, in say a past liability situation. They see tax, even if they're not, or don't understand that they have some past liability and they haven't been doing things correctly. Just that word tax, right, and dealing with it can certainly create a lot of issues, make people lose sleep. It's why we constantly talk about, peace of mind, so
Yes.
people can actually sleep, and it will not go away by ignoring it. That's the bottom line, and that applies to both businesses, business owners, accountants, just people working within a business that are certainly in a management type role, director, VP, CFO, whatever it may be. But it also applies very much so to CPAs. And I think oftentimes people really do need to just make that call, right? Whether you're the CPA or you're involved in the business, since we're talking about CPAs here, right? You're supposed to be the advisor. It doesn't mean you need to know everything, right? Oftentimes an advisor is smart enough and understands enough to ask questions, right? I love to say questions are the answers, right? Come to us, ask the questions. You will become a better advisor as a CPA. And then on the business owner side, or again, people involved in the business, encourage your CPA to learn more about it. Encourage them to even join you on a What's Next call and simply ask these questions, or you may not even know what questions to ask, right? And that's what this call is for, is so we'll ask the questions. We'll kind of turn over the rocks, if you will, flip them over, and we'll show you like what you need to be paying attention to. And as these statistics say, right, this article that from CPA Trendline says, people just don't know, right? There are a lot of blind spots. And even in our role, right, within the sales tax world, there are going to be questions that come up. You may ask us a question that comes up, and we will say, I don't know, if we don't know. But at least we know where to look. And that certainly you as a CPA can know that you can look to a firm like ours, and we can have this discussion, and you're going to get useful and valuable information out of that call. And that's why I said, marriage or relationship therapy, because oftentimes it needs to be probably the business owner asking their CPA to help out. And likewise, right, the CPA oftentimes is going to need to get that information and then discuss it with their client, who in most cases the client, that business owner, would trust the CPA more than us because they've had more experience with that CPA. So you as the CPA get that information, relay it to your client. It's just going to really connect with that client and get them to really consider this. And we're always in the habit of putting out all the information and allowing people to make their own decisions. That's what a consultant does. That's what an advisor does. And we're not going to take a fear-mongering approach and say, you're in trouble, go register everywhere, go do voluntary disclosures everywhere, and hurry clean up this mess. It's like, no, be deliberate, consider all your options, and make confident and wise business decisions based on that information.
Good points, really good points.
Yeah.
Just to cap that, what you said at the end there, our ultimate goal in helping sellers become compliant is to mitigate out-of-pocket dollars. It's our ultimate goal. We're always trying to reach compliance with no dollars out of pocket to the states. It's a genuine goal that we have, and there's ways to accomplish that, and we can't guarantee that there will be no dollars out of pocket, but that's our ultimate goal in trying to achieve compliance for sellers in today's marketplace.
Yeah, I really like that. In the last couple of days, it feels like we've had a couple discussions on, why we call it a What's Next call and not just a free consultation. A free consultation does sound good, but for me, that kind of has the connotation, and I feel like at the end of this consultation, you're probably going to hard sell me on something, and I avoid free consultations because that's usually what it is. So that's why we kind of call it a What's Next call, because that's what we are addressing. where do we go next after this? And we can help you decide that. Whether or not, we decide to do business together, we want you to come away from that with some peace of mind, questions answered. And even with the what's next call, for CPAs and accountants, there's like a separate button to let us know that you're a CPA and you have a client that has some questions. So, we handle this a lot, and it's something we do very often. And we love working with CPAs and accountants. I think those are some of the best relationships that we've got here. But thank you again, guys, for joining me. It's a great discussion today, and we hope to see you guys in another one.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
See ya.